Hey everybody, it's B007 back for another 10-minute movie review. And today I'm going to be talking about the new Bollywood sports movie Ghoomer, the Indian political documentary While We Watched, and the French drama Lie With Me. Let's start with Ghoomer, which I really enjoyed. I think it's a must watch for any cricket fans. It stars the beautiful Sayami Kaur as Anina, who is this really hardworking talented batswoman who is on the verge of playing for India when she is the victim of a hit and run car accident. She survives, but her right arm has been amputated, and understandably, she becomes suicidal. She's having to not only give up cricket, but a standard of living and an independence of living. This is where Abhishek Bachchan comes in. His character is called Paddy, and he was also a frustrated Indian Test match cricketer. Played one match, suffered an injury, and was never selected again. And on the back of that desperate disappointment, has become an alcoholic, brutish, rather rude. But he recognizes in her a fellow person who suffered something rather unfair and says, look, you can play for India if you retrain and rather than being a right handed batsman, you become a left handed spin bowler. She finds this laughable and insulting, so does everyone else, and yet somehow they get together and they start a pretty brutal training regime that had me in mind of Karate Kid and Whiplash and all those films that have a coach who is using very harsh methods to bring the best out of their young people. I really loved this film, and the reason why is that I'm a massive cricket fan, so there was a lot to love just in that respect. But even then, I think it, despite having this quite emotional climax at a big cricket match, for most of its runtime, it really does avoid schmaltz. Anina is very strong as a character, often silent, but you really get her determination, her grit, and I really admired her. She's a really compelling character. I liked the fact that the love story between Anina and her childhood sweetheart, played by Angad Bedi, by the way, the son of real life cricket icon Bishan Singh Bedi, it's actually quite downplayed. I mean, it's there, it's sweet, but his character and the love story are definitely a side story to her rehabilitation and success. And I think that's really good. I also like the fact that while Anina's dad is very proud and very supportive, it's actually her sensible and intelligent grandma, who's played by Shabana Azmi, who is really her coach and her inspiration. She plays the role very deadpan, very witty, very dry. I really loved this character of the grandma. But most of all, this film avoids schmaltz by not giving Paddy a redemption arc. It does not attempt to hide the fact that he's a pretty unpleasant, pretty selfish, brutal character. And that's not just in respect to Anina, but also with respect to Risika, his adoptive trans sister. He isn't nice. He doesn't become nice. He doesn't magically get sober through coaching Anina. That said, I do think this is Abhishek Bachchan's finest acting performance probably since Guru. He has a monologue at the centre of the film where he talks about the frustration of losing one's cricketing career for reasons that feel very unfair, and it's brutal, but it's really moving. I also really loved the cameo from Abhishek's real life father, Amitabh Bachchan, playing himself, doing some cricket commentary at the end of the film. And it's a lovely role because it really just speaks for us as the audience. Amitabh Bachchan is articulating all the emotion we feel when we see Anina take the stage, as it were. And it's lovely and it's cathartic and it is a bit emotionally manipulative, but I think we've earned the right by the end of this film. And I certainly am not ashamed to admit that I cried for a lot of the final 20 minutes of this film. My only issue with the film is the way that Risika's character is used to soften Paddy's character. He's quite unpleasant, and really the only reason why we sympathize with him at all is that we know that he has taken in his childhood best friend, who became a trans woman, and protected her from the wrath of her family and helped her live a good life. And that is wonderful. And it's great that we have representation of a trans character in a mainstream Bollywood film. I just wonder if it's okay that her character is just there to soften his character. So Ghoomer, I think, is a really uplifting, heartwarming family film, especially if you're a cricket fan. It comes with endorsements from people like Tendulkar and indeed a cameo from Bishan Singh Bedi. It has a running time of 135 minutes, it's rated 12A, and it was released globally last weekend. The second film under discussion today is While We Watched, which is a documentary by Vinay Shukla. He returns to our screens with this very depressing but moving and, sadly globally relevant documentary, While We Watched. This film is about the death of independent journalism in Narendra Modi's India. So, my cards on my sleeve. I do not like Narendra Modi. I think he's a nationalist, a populist. For all he's achieved economically, I think that he's leading India down a path that is not diverse, that is not inclusive, and that is undermining democratic institutions, the judiciary, and the media. And this documentary focuses on how Modi's political party has tried to undermine NDTV, which was a major or is a major TV channel in India and was a major news channel. And the anchorman in question here is Ravish Kumar, big, mainstream news anchor, massive audience. And, we just see in the course of this documentary how his program is under attack, how his newsroom is decimated, both because people are sacked, they're not paid enough, they leave to find other jobs. It's almost like a running joke that every 15 minutes another of his trusted lieutenants is resigning. It's just really wearying to see more people traipse into his office, and it's wearying to see how tired and depressed he becomes as he's trying to do his job, which is to do good, independent journalism and to tell the people of India what's really happening in their country. And every time he does, he's under attack in social media. You see the shock jocks and the very politicized people on opposing channels, and indeed sometimes on his own, going after him and saying that just because he has the temerity to criticize the government, he's somehow unpatriotic, he's anti national, he must be a Maoist, he must be an agent of a foreign country. And it's kind of amazing to me in the week where India landed on the moon that this country that has everything going for it should be so paranoid and insecure and ungenerous in how it looks to its own diverse communities and how it looks to the world. By the end of the film, we see the state so paranoid about what this journalist is saying that they're actually blocking the signal of his satellite channel. I mean, it's unbelievable. But anyway, the documentarians follow him between 2018 and 2020. We leave him after Narendra Modi has been swept to victory once again in an election. And we know that, or I know that after 2020, when the filming ends, NDTV became even more under threat. Its owners were threatened with spurious cases about corruption and fraud. And finally, they sold out to a crony billionaire called Gautam Adani, who is definitely in the pocket of Narendra Modi. So I guess they won. Ravish Kumar, the journalist in this documentary, debates with people in the course of this documentary whether he can do journalism and keep his job. He feels and looks really uncomfortable with being an inspiration for new people entering the profession. And sadly, we know that when this documentary ended, he did resign from his job and now it can only speak out on YouTube. So he was effectively pushed out, bullied out, and deplatformed. It's really unbelievably depressing. I feel that for anyone interested in contemporary India, this film is essential viewing. That said, given the global trends towards nationalism, populism, and increasingly shrill and partisan media, and frankly, the increasing violence towards journalists, I would argue that this film, While We Watched, is essential viewing for anyone who cares about democracy and holding our politicians to account. While We Watched has a running time of 94 minutes. It played Toronto 2022. It was released in the UK last month. You can watch it at home if you go to Curzon Home Cinema. Finally, let's talk about Lie With Me, aka Arrête avec tes mensonges, a French drama, perhaps more correctly translated as Stop with Your Lies or Stop with Your Stories. It's a film that's told in two timelines. The first timeline is where we see two 17-year-old boys. They're in a provincial small town school. They fall in love. They have a full sexual relationship. They really are in love, though. One of them leaves for America to pursue his dream of becoming a writer, a novelist, and living a life that's true to himself and his sexuality. The other one stays back. He is under obligation to take over his family farm, and maybe also just doesn't have that courage to come out of the closet. 35 years later, the writer Stefan is now very famous. He's written novel after novel, a lot of them alluding to this great lost love of his youth. And he returns to his small hometown. He doesn't find his childhood love, Thomas, because that guy has sadly passed away. But he does find his son, who's now a 20 something student, and they strike up a friendship. And you, through that, get to discover what happened after Stefan left for America, and you get to discover a little bit what happened to Thomas. I said before that the more accurate translation of the film's title is Stop with Your Lies or Stop Making Up Stories. And to a certain extent, I feel everyone in this film is lying until the big cathartic denouement. Stefan is lying about what Thomas meant to him and the fact that he's using him in all of his literature, and that you can almost like chart an investigation of that relationship through reading his books. Thomas, poor Thomas in the closet, lied his entire life about his sexuality to his wife, to his child, but is somehow, in his final days and through his death, trying to reveal or show the breadcrumbs of the trail. And then the son, Lucas, originally lies to Stefan to strike up a friendship with him when clearly he just wants to know about his father. But finally, it does come together in this beautiful cathartic ending. I sort of feel that this film is gentle, it's elegant, it's beautiful, it's moving, but it is also quite slow, quite plodding at times, quite obvious. For whatever reason, it never really truly captured my heart and felt safe when I feel it should have felt bold. Lie With Me played BFI Flair 2023. It's currently on release in the UK, both in selected cinemas, also online, and it has a running time of 93 minutes. So I would highly recommend Ghoomer and While We Watched. I think Lie With Me is just fine. Whatever you watch this weekend, I hope you have a really great time. Thank you for listening.